In this video, we're going to look at a function in myUPEI called request to payment. This is one that you will not use on a regular basis. It's a bit of an exception. Most of the time when you're purchasing something using university funds, the process that you go through involves creating a requisition. That requisition gets approved. A purchase order is created, it's sent to the supplier ships the items which are received here at the university, an invoice is sent to the university, the goods are received in the system, a voucher is created for the vendor, which basically is approval to pay the vendor or a request to pay the vendor, and then the vendor gets paid. But there are times that purchases are made which don't really fit that mechanism. So, for example, there may be times whenever you have something like a membership that's being paid by the university, or a subscription to something like magazine or some kind of online digital service that is renewed automatically. So rather than you sending a purchase order to say, please, continue my membership for the next year, you just get an invoice which you want to pay. So in this case, you can request a payment. And to do so, you begin by drilling down into Web Advisor for Employees, financial information, and then request a payment. So we begin in a similar fashion to creating a requisition. We have to indicate who is to be paid. Now, this reimburse myself, this feature is not being used here at UPEI. So this is not the way to make claims for PTTR, that kind of thing. In this case, as I described previously, you're paying a supplier, but it doesn't quite fit into the typical issue a purchase order and receive the goods or services. So we check the box, always check the box that says pay vendor, and we can do a search here. So I'm just going to search for association, and you'll see there's quite a number of them that come up. And let's suppose that I'm a member of the Veterinary Lab Association. That's possible. So I'm going to click Submit. And I now come to a screen that looks, again, rather similar to entering a requisition. And it is quite a similar process in that case. So we can fill in the invoice number here, because, again, we would have already received an invoice. The confirmation email address. The vendor information and address has been filled in for me because I selected a vendor that was known to the system. If this was a new vendor, then you have an opportunity when it lists the vendors with request of payment. There's a choice at the end that says other. If you pick other, then these boxes will be blank. All of this information will be blank, and you have to fill that in so that the appropriate payment can be made. Comments can be filled in here, and then down here we describe what we're paying for. So I'm going to say annual membership, if I can spell, dues. Quantity of 1, let's say the price is $1.99. Again, I have to identify a cost center, just as I would with a requisition. And in this case, I'm going to choose subscriptions, memberships. There we go. No project ID associated. Scroll down a little further. Again, very similar to creating a requisition. Now I'm going to submit. And that's it. Now a voucher has been created. And a voucher, again, it's a bit of a new term for us here at the university, but it is essentially a request to make a payment. So where a purchase order is a request to purchase something, a voucher is a request to make a payment. In this case, a payment to the Veterinary Lab Association. And it shows that it's been approved because it wasn't over my limit. There's no next approval, so I can just click OK. And that's really all there is to entering a request for payment. Again, it's important to understand that it's not something that you use on a regular basis. It really is something that is almost an exception to some case. Now, once you have created the voucher, if you have received the invoice yourself, which is likely in this case, you need to send that information over to accounts payable. So if you have received it electronically, that's great. You've already got it in digital form. Otherwise, you need to scan it and send it as an attachment to the email address invoices@upei.ca, and that's plural, invoices with an S, at upei.ca. And in the subject of your email, you should include the voucher number. And so once you've created the voucher, or once you've entered all the information, the voucher is created, there's a voucher number, include that in the subject of the email, and that makes it possible for for accounts payable to associate that documentation with the voucher that you've entered. So after we go live with the finance aspects of Colleague and myUPEI, accounts payable won't be receiving or accepting paper any longer. The process is, the new procedure is to send things digitally to that invoices@upei.ca. And that's about all there is to requesting a payment.